Please welcome Mira Burt-Wintonick.
I started out actually more interested in film. As was mentioned, my dad was a documentary filmmaker, and I grew up thinking I wanted to follow in his footsteps and make my own films. And as I was doing the sound design for my short films, I really fell in love with audio, and I was really excited about working in, isolating just one sense and focusing on the act of listening. So I kind of ditched visuals and started working solely or primarily in sound. So WireTap began as a summer series back in 2004 on CBC. And it was called WireTap because in the beginning, it was really, you felt like you were eavesdropping on these conversations on the telephone. And you were never sure whether they were real or not, whether this was like a real thing you were eavesdropping on or if they were kind of created. That worked well and was kind of easy to pull off because it was just audio. There's no visual cues giving you a sense of that this is staged or fake. So when WireTap began in 2004, podcasting was just starting to become a thing. There was This American Life got their podcast in 2006. We got ours in 2009, but there weren't really that many people doing it back then. But of course, more recently, there's been an explosion of podcasts. Pitchfork has a podcast now. Everyone and their uncle has a podcast. So the question is, how do you stay relevant in that sea of content? How do you grab or retain your audience's attention when there's so much else that they could be listening to? And that also forces you to be more creative in terms of how you tell those stories. Podcast audiences listen very differently than traditional radio audiences. They're listening with headphones on often. They're listening from beginning to end. That changes how you can structure your stories. And the fact that they're often listening with headphones or listening in a more focused way means you can invest more time into your sound mix, and it's not going to get drowned out by the dishes or the car radio as much as with traditional radio. And this is one of the ones that we made in that kind of attempt to utilize sound design more and be more, just to try to stand out from some of the other podcasts that are out there. And so it's a radio drama of a woman playing online dating as though it were a video game.
Level 6, domestic life.
You and your guy have just moved in together. You've almost made it to the marriage round. But first, you must conquer your toughest opponent yet. Sunday afternoon IKEA. You have a list of 12 items to pick up for your new apartment. Get to the checkout without telling him you hate him. Ready, set, go!
Doing great, hon. You didn't yell at me once.
Bravo! You have earned 100 bonus points. Would you like to cash in those points for a new Stoffel reading lamp or for a sneak peek into your future? You are putting together your new bookshelf. You drop the Allen key again, and he freaks out at you. Argue over the dishes. You binge watch Netflix. He loses your vacation money playing poker. You sing bad karaoke together. Short summers. Grocery shopping. He tells you he loves you. You buy your first home. You hold hands under the table at your wedding. You give birth to your first child. He has a midlife crisis. You scream at each other over money. You forgive him. Board games during a blackout. You cheat on him with his friend. Your son graduates. He forgives you. Drinking too much. Dancing to Stand By Me at your daughter's wedding. You have a midlife crisis. Hot flashes. You rediscover yourself. Getting old. Crossword puzzles. You share reading glasses. You tell him you love him. You read him the newspaper. You dress him. He forgets your name. You survive long winters. You sell the house. You're alone. You have pressed pause. Do you wish to continue? Do you wish to continue? Do you wish to continue? Level 7. Marriage. Congratulations. You've never made it this far. The key to this challenge and to being a good partner is
So this is a piece that I wrote and produced with my coworker Cristal. And so as I mentioned, it ended up winning this big radio drama award, but unless you listen to WireTap or are a huge podcast junkie, you probably never heard this piece. Part of the reason for that is that audio never goes viral. And there's a few theories why this might be. With audio, like you're not necessarily at a screen while you're listening. Like let's say you're listening to a podcast, you might be doing something else while you're listening, so you don't have the share button right at your disposal. If someone sends you a link to, let's say, some piece like this, there's no quick way to like scroll through what it is the way you can with like an article. You can skim it. With a video, you can kind of fast forward and get to the part where the cat, does the stupid thing. So one thing we did was in 2012, we commissioned a couple animators in Montreal to create an animation based on one of our radio pieces. A couple years ago, when we launched our 10th season, we made a radio piece in which people aged 5 to 95 give each other advice on growing up. So a few months ago, we decided to make a video version with the exact same concept and structure, just to, again, kind of trick people into listening to our radio stories by presenting it in a visual medium. So to our surprise, the video ended up going viral, getting 6 million views in the first few days. And since we put it up 2 months ago, I believe it's been seen about 27 million times, which is way more than any of our audio stuff ever got heard. There's an element of unexpectedness, each new sentence is a non sequitur, so it could be basically anything. It's kind of hard to predict what's coming next, but yet it's all very relatable. And as visual storytelling, it works well because the text, the animated text on screen when you're scrolling through your Facebook feed, if you don't have your sound on, you kind of see a hint of what people are saying, and you might be compelled to get sucked in. You might get sucked in. But what I can't help but wonder is what is lost by adding visuals to this piece. When you see someone tell you a story, they exist concretely outside of you. The specifics of who they are, who they appear to be, separates them from you. You relate to them differently based on how they look, what race they are, how attractive they are. When you hear someone telling you a story, the distinction between you is blurred. The sound of their voice intertwines with your own inner thoughts. You fill in the blanks of who they are by imposing yourself onto the story and becoming a part of it. We often assume that adding visuals is adding quality to a story, when I think often there's something is being lost at the expense of adding those visuals. I just wanted to leave you with these words from my former collaborator, Jonathan. The eyes are not the window to the soul, the radio is. On the radio, there are no mullet cuts or rat tails, no toreador pants, no neon makeup, halitosis, sweaty hands, or dandruff, just the soul. The listener becomes like the blind man in those old Greek tragedies, who, despite his lack of sight, possesses true vision. Thanks.